Governments are literally forcing on your operating system to become a piece of surveillance, and it's already law in California. That's what you're seeing right here on screen. Many states are pushing these bills to require your OS to track your age and report it to every single app you run, which is quite scary, and we'll talk about why. Colorado just passed this in the Senate. 4 more states have bills at play. It's quite scary stuff, and it includes Linux, including Fedora, Ubuntu, who have publicly had to comment on this to see if they're going to comply or not. So let's talk about what's going on and what you can do. So to kind of give a breakdown of California's law first, it is trying to make sure that people who start using an operating system are essentially having to give up their age in order to use the operating system. This received complete bipartisan support. Literally, the Assembly 76-0 and the Senate was 38-0. Not a single person in California thought there was a problem with this law, which is going to take effect on January 1st, 2027. This has already been passed. What this essentially requires is that every operating system provider in California has to collect age information from users at account setup and transmit that data to app developers via a real-time API. The really weird thing is that there's a very broad definition of an operating system provider, and what they say is, quote, develops, licenses, or controls the operating system software on a computer, mobile device, or any other general purpose computing device, which means that this impacts SteamOS, it impacts Linux, it impacts literally anything, including even custom ROMs. The operating system providers have to then group people into buckets, including either under 13, 13 to under 16, 16 to under 18, and then 18 or older. And that's not just stored on your operating system, it's actually shared with any developer who requests it when their app is downloaded or launched. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit here is that once a developer receives that signal, they're deemed to have actual knowledge of their user's age range under the law, which actually shifts legal liability for age-appropriate content decisions onto them. So penalties for non-compliance for each developer who develops anything, even open source software on Linux. They might have to deal with penalties for non-compliance and have up to $2,500 per affected child and $7,500 for intentional ones. And that's enforced by the California Attorney General. I want to be very clear here. What this means is that if you are a developer, you just produce open source software. Let's say you produce a torrent client that's completely open source and is available on Linux. If a child uses a service and downloads something that's not appropriate for children via a torrent client, which is just open source software, it's also how you can download Linux distros. There's legitimate reasons to have torrents, and it's not actually illegal to torrent things. It's an open web protocol. But if you develop this torrent client and a child did something wrong with it, you are now personally liable just because you developed software that's used in this way. So I hope you already start to see how dangerous this kind of stuff is. Now, this obviously is going to include things like Windows, iOS, Android, things that come from big tech companies. And why this is so good for big tech companies, and the reason why they are actually for this, is because now, again, they can shift liability to developers. It's not Apple's job to be in control of this. It's a developer's responsibility now to make sure that they are following the API. This also impacts Linux distributions. So distros like Arch, Ubuntu, Debian, and Gentoo have no centralized account infrastructures because users just download ISOs from mirrors worldwide, and they can modify the source code freely. They also don't have legal teams or resources to implement all these required APIs, and they probably don't want to fight this stuff in court because it's hard to fight this stuff, especially when, again, big tech companies want this. Now, this isn't just California, because recently Colorado also passed a very, very similar bill, which does essentially the same thing. It also passed their Senate committee 5-0. Luckily, the full Senate, there was a little bit of pushback, 28-7, so it wasn't just a complete sweep like it was in California. This is now supposed to head over to the Colorado House, so it's still not fully passed, but given how much overwhelming support there is for this, it's not unrealistic to pass either. And if it's passed and signed, this would take effect on January 1st, 2028. Now, overall, there's a bit of nuance on when a developer willfully disregards a signal versus not just passively receiving it, but this is 99% of the same bill as California. And guys, this isn't just those 2 states. This is already starting to pop up in different states. So we have Colorado, New York State, California. Comparable bills are being debated in various other states, including Illinois, which is Senate Bill 3977, Louisiana House Bill 570, and Texas SB 2420, and Utah SB 142. So this is already starting to pop up around the country. And as the register says, it's not limited to the US either, because Brazil's similar law number 15.211/2025, which is the Brazilian statute for the protection of children and adolescents online, was also passed in September 2025. So these models are being copied, they're being replicated, they're growing, they're expanding. It's becoming a real issue on a global scale, and no federal bill has passed yet, fortunately, in the US, but proposals have been floated. This isn't something that's that crazy, and if one passes without an open source exemption, state-level carve-outs become kind of irrelevant. So we need to be very careful about this stuff. They say that this is about preventing harm to kids online. All these things sound like good ideas. We want to keep kids safe online. We want to try to find the best way to do that. But the actual problem is that this doesn't prevent a 12-year-old faking their birth year. None of these actually require real age verification. So again, you might be going, so what's the privacy issue there? But the real concern is the infrastructure that this creates. Once an age signal API is baked into every operating system, future laws can still require actual ID verification at that same layer. The next law that passes is, oh hey, we realize that 12-year-olds are lying and that they're saying they're 18, so now that same law that we passed last year, we need to also require ID when you do that. Oh, and we realize that people are now getting around that by using a VPN. So yeah, let's also ban VPNs. And if you think I'm kidding, they have already proposed VPN bans in light of age verification laws in the US in a few states. So this is literally what's going on. They pass these things that seem good, there are very clear workarounds to them, and then they shut down all those workarounds, and before you know it, we don't even have a free internet anymore. You can't even download open source software without thinking about if you're going to have to hand over your ID just to access it. It's crazy. In addition to this, I am quite concerned that this is also going to turn into a situation where app developers are held personally liable. They're scared to push out updates, they're scared to develop applications, and I think that this exact infrastructure can also be kind of tailored in a way to even block developers from actually publishing their apps in a way that the operating systems allow them to be installed. So lately we've been talking about how Google's trying to lock down Android so that you can't as easily sideload applications on your Android device away from the Google Play Store unless Google is like, okay, yeah, you have a good developer account in good standing. So developers have to upload their ID, they have to upload verification that they have signing keys, they have to do all this stuff and hand over their lives to Google even if they don't publish to the Google Play Store. And I think that we might see some requirements like this if we bake this kind of stuff into our operating system. So theoretically, they're going to have some kind of way to regulate what you can install from things like package managers on Linux. And so those might also have to be age verified, and also there might be some kind of points where they can start going after developers that they don't like their software they're developing.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, TRYHACKME. If you watch this channel, you probably care about protecting your privacy and security, but I've learned that it helps a lot to actually understand how the attacks being executed against you actually work. TRYHACKME is a service that can help bridge that gap. It's a hands-on cybersecurity learning platform where you learn by actually doing, working through some real-world scenarios, capture the flag challenges, and guided learning paths that take you from complete beginner to even getting a job if you wanted to. And because everything is browser-based, there's nothing to install. You just jump in online and start learning. What makes TRYHACKME stand out is how well-structured the experience is. You're not just watching videos or reading documentation, you're actually practicing in a safe, legal environment designed to build real muscle memory. They cover everything from basic networking and Linux fundamentals all the way to advanced penetration testing and threat intelligence. So there's a clear path forward no matter where you're starting from. Whether you're looking to break into cybersecurity professionally and get a job, or you just want to actually understand some of the threats that we talk about on this channel, TRYHACKME makes it approachable and genuinely fun, which is half the battle. Over 6 million people are already using it, and it's one of the most beginner-friendly ways to get started. You can try it for free, and if you want full access, use the link below for an exclusive 25% off on their annual subscription. Stop guessing about your own security. Check it out at the link in the description.
I want to be very clear, this isn't hypothetical. Linux distros have literally come forward. Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu, they're reviewing this. They haven't announced concrete changes, but community developer discussions include proposals for the optional dbus interface to handle age brackets locally without privacy-invasive telemetry, potentially influencing other distros if adopted. We're currently looking into how to implement an API that will comply with the laws while also not being a privacy disaster. So this is already a Linux distro looking to comply with these laws. Elementary OS, great operating system, also going to be relying on their implementation. Fedora community is also exploring non-intrusive implementations like a local API. System76, who is behind Pop! OS, also said that they do not mandate robust verification, only the kind of like self-declaration of what you are, and warned that non-compliance could lead to restricted app access for users. They're also considering minimal changes to provide age signals, focusing on avoiding unintended consequences like a nerfed internet. Some distros are just plain resisting, but this is overall very scary stuff. So I think it's crazy that we're going to say, like, guys, like let's zoom out. Of course, I feel like in the last year or two, we've become so used to the concept of age verification because we see these new bills and these new ideas floating around every couple weeks. But like, if you told me 2 years ago that there was laws coming forward that would demand you to share what your age is just to use a Linux distribution, that is crazy. Like, I just wouldn't have believed you. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Now, there is a small, I mean, very small silver lining here. So the System76, I believe, is actually based out of Denver, Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. And so they actually came forward and spoke to a California state senator who co-authored that California age attestation bill. And they said, quote, that they met with them and they suggested excluding open source software from the bill. This appears to be a real possibility. Amendments are expected for the California bill. It's my hope we can move fast enough to influence excluding open source in the California bill amendments. No illusions, it's an uphill battle, but we have an open door to advocate for the open source community. And I think this is at least a very good starting point. I think if something is open source software, it's crazy to hold personal developers and personal contributors to open source software potentially liable for something that is by definition, a community project. There's the issue of this in the first place, right? Like, this shouldn't be happening and we should be fighting this at its root. But then there's this like even bigger issue of like, how do we even regulate this on an open source kind of, in an open source world? I just don't see how it's possible. So I hope we can at least win on that latter one, but we should hopefully try to win on all of this, but we'll see what we can do. If you're in Colorado, you can go to the link down in the description so that you can actually find the people in the Colorado General Assembly, and you can contact them about this specific bill and say that you are opposed to it. Contact them, leave something personal. You can find your specific legislator and just share your thoughts, share why you're against this, share your concerns, and also share this with friends and family, both the video, but also anything here that you can kind of point them to also contact those individuals. In addition, if you're in California, kind of a similar thing. If you're in New York, same thing. If you're in Illinois, same thing. If you're in any of the states that I listed in this video, you should be contacting your representatives ASAP. I just think that this is going so under the radar, and genuinely, I don't think all of these people know what they're signing up for. I think maybe a lot of them do, but I know that some of these politicians just need to hear from some people like, hey, did you actually consider how problematic this is? And please bring up the open source examples as well. Be like, open source software is by the community for the community, and there is no single person that should be really in charge of this kind of liability here. So I think there's a lot that can be unpacked that you guys can really share with these politicians to just make them think about it. So System76, I think, did a really good blog post on this, which of course will also be in the description. So check out that blog post from System76 and kind of what they're doing, what the nuances are, again, between each state. And they talk about their personal thoughts. Carl's the CEO of System76. When it comes to this stuff, please follow these people. Follow the EFF, follow System76, follow the people who are currently like at the forefront of this fight, which right now really seems to be System76. I don't really see much fighting from Canonical, which I find a bit crazy given Canonical probably has the most resources out of any of these, including also Fedora as well. Like, you have these Linux distros with actual corporate backing and a lot of money, and I feel like I haven't heard anything from them on actually fighting this stuff. So maybe I just missed it, so please correct me if I'm wrong or I missed something, but I would also really push on these Linux distributions who aren't fighting back to be like, hey, can you guys do anything so that we don't have to push this out in the first place? But do it respectfully. We're not trying to like just spam Linux distros and stuff like this, but just try to connect with people who are behind these Linux distros to get more information, see what they can do. And I think that there just needs to be more discussion about this period right now. There's very little discussion about this. We're a little late to this as well. We've been working on tons of projects back here. And so hopefully we can really wake up to this and get a head start on it before we get 10 more states trying to roll this out. So yeah, share this video, talk about it, talk to people who are writing these bills, passing these bills. And if you want to stay on top of developments like this every week, you can become a Techlorian. We also have a digital newsletter. We'll definitely be doing updates on this in Surveillance Report, which is our weekly podcast, which is also published on the same channel. We're going to do our best here, but that's all I have to share today. I want to thank you all for watching. Super scary stuff. Please let me know what you think down in the description. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say, but I will see you next time, and we'll keep you all updated. So, see you soon.